Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Living Manna. Hi, guys. I'm Dave Sane, Senior Shepherd here at LMC. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It's time for Bible study. Looking forward to this one, guys. Got a neat one for you. But before we do that, just a couple of things to mention to you. Same old stuff. If this is the first time you're hanging out with us and you're on YouTube, of course, please hit that like button if you enjoy it. Share it out with somebody. Hit the bell so you're notified. Each time that we go live, subscribe, be part of the LMC family. We would appreciate it. You'll get notified each time we go live and all the other things we do, whether it's Wednesday or Saturday or Friday. And we would love to have you. Excuse me. And of course, download the app if you haven't done so yet. That's the LMC app. You can get it at the Google Play Store. You can get it at the App Store. Download it, become part of LMC, part of the chat that we have, a private chat. We'd love to have you. A reminder, I got a big week coming up this week. Obviously, it's Wednesday. On Friday, there is no Hidden Manna, but we will be having a Zoom call. The information for that Zoom call is going to go out on Friday. We're going to make sure it goes out in the notifications. We're going to make sure it goes out on Manna Eaters. That's our private chat room. So make sure that you guys are available, that you guys can hear that and check it out and be part of the chat that night. We want everybody, for people that are outside LMC here in the general NYC area, and even our family here in the NYC area, please join the chat, be part of the conversation. Be nice for everybody to get a chance to see each other. That's not the end of it, though. This upcoming Shabbat, our normal service goes on at 10:30, and then right after, we have a membership meeting and a lunch. We're going to have some fellowship, some time. We're going to go over our annual business meeting. So we invite all of you to be there. It's going to be very interesting. Trust me, a very, very interesting Shabbat. We look forward to it. And I think that's all the commercials for right now. If I can think of anything else, I'll catch it at the end. But here it is, Wednesday night, time for Bible study. Looking forward to it. The title and the topic for tonight is just really the continuing information we've been talking about. But tonight's title is The Great Tribulation, 70 AD. Now, obviously, we've been talking about this for quite some time. This is a series that's honestly taken maybe a couple of months to even to get to this point where we are today. And of course, you can see that the picture that's up there. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys, on whatever you're watching on, it's big enough. You guys can follow us on the notes. That'll be right up on your screen. But also, if you would like a copy for yourselves, for your iPhone, your iPad, or you just want to print them out, right in the description box at YouTube, or if you're watching on the app, you can download them both. And this way you can have a copy of it and make your own little notations, your own little notes as we go through it. And don't forget, if you are watching, please give us a hello in the chat. Want to know where you guys are watching from? And just say peace, shalom, everybody. All right. So the Great Tribulation, 70 AD. As I said, this is part of a much bigger topic that we've been talking about. And I'm not going to go through a whole lot of review today because we've been doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, literally months. And but I'll give you this. Obviously, tonight, here we are tonight. Um, Let me get this color. This is tonight's study, The Great Tribulation, 70 AD. And if you want to do some review, if you haven't been watching us, consistently over the last few weeks, you can go back and listen to last week's. That's the Abomination of Desolation. And the week before that was the 70th week tribulation, Matthew 24. Go back and watch those, or go back even further, because this message actually started months ago when we started talking about Deuteronomy and Moses, because this is where the whole story starts. This is where the whole thing of Daniel, the whole thing of Matthew, Mark, it all starts with Moses and Deuteronomy. So you can go back and you can listen to all of that. And then all of our studies on Daniel's 70 weeks, which are connected to everything Moses says, and obviously everything we're talking about now. And of course, now we're talking about Daniel, but in reference to Matthew and Luke. We haven't really hit Mark, even though Mark sort of gives us a little synopsis of the same thing. But if you got Matthew and Luke, you're really kind of getting the whole story there. So that's where we are now. And so if you do need some review, if any of this seems a little different to you, you can go back and you can listen. But basically, we are looking at what we would call end times, what's normally referred to as end times, like Daniel 70 weeks, like Matthew and Luke 24, Luke 21, Matthew 24. as end times being our end times from a dispensational perspective. That is a modern, dispensational, modern evangelical, born again perspective, that all of this stuff is talking about the second coming of Messiah, meaning when he comes to establish the kingdom. That's one view, and it's a view that many amongst the evangelical, born again, charismatic world have. It's sort of the main teaching you get in Bible colleges and seminaries, but it's not the only one. Nor is it the one of the first, second, third, fourth century believers. Very different. That these verses are not about, from a non-dispensational point of view, they are not about the end of the age, meaning the end of our age, but they are about the end of the age of the temple. And so these, from our perspective, we would be looking back in history. And back in history, we would see 70 AD as the fulfillment of these. As, if you go back and listen, we'll go through all the proofs as to why and how, but I'll leave that to you guys to do. But here's the verse I want you to keep in mind as we go through this. Everything that the master is talking about in Luke 21, and he's talking about in Matthew 24, has to be referenced from this perspective. This is Matthew 23, so the chapter before it. Don't let the chapters fool you. You know, sometimes there's no such thing as chapters as they're writing the letter. It's all a continuous story. But Matthew chapter 23, after going through all the woes, the master leaves us off with this. Or surely I tell you, all this stuff that's going to come, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that kills the prophets and stones those who were sent to her. You know, not one stone's going to be left upon another because of you missed the time of your visitation. Your house is going to be left to you desolate. All that. I'm mixing Luke and I'm mixing Matthew all together just to give you the idea. But then he goes on to say, assuredly, I tell you, all of this will come upon this generation. So as we read these words, we're reading it now. Again, it's a different perspective than we've had before, but we're reading it now that, wait a minute, he's not talking to us per se. He is talking to them. These are things that generation will see. And of course, 70 AD is that generation from the time of the apostles. So that's sort of the perspective that we're taking. Keep that Matthew 23:36 fresh in your mind as we go through this tonight. But here we go. Let's jump into this right now. Here is our first slide. It's important that we understand a little bit more about what was actually going on from the time of the death of Messiah, those 40 years up until the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Most of us really are not aware of kind of what went on. We know, Rome comes in 70 AD. Most of us would know this. We would hear this at some point in some sort of church service or some sort of Bible study, that eventually Rome comes in and they destroy the temple. Okay, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. A lot more goes on than just that. And everything's about the details. Everything's in the details. So I want us to get a picture. So we've gone over a lot of verses in Matthew. We're gonna go over a couple of them again, but give you some other references to them, some other statements historically that support what was actually going on, and you can see this is what the Messiah is talking about. I want you to realize that in Jerusalem, from the time of the Messiah, and really this was going on even before the Messiah came. Jerusalem had troubles way before, but from the time of the resurrection all the way up to 70 AD, it led to what would become a civil war. Or really, I guess maybe today we would call it a color revolution, a Marxist revolution, a battle between sects. And it became a class warfare. It became a warfare of religion, religious extremism, and it became a clashing of differing political views. Sounds familiar, right? Because this is kind of history. This is what we're watching right now in our own nation. These things were going on in Jerusalem. These are the things Messiah is referring to when he tells us things like this. Here's Matthew chapter 24, verse 4. And I'm also going to use Luke 21. They are comparable verses. Each one gives us a little bit more information, which is why I'm going to use both of them. So here's Matthew 24, and listen to what the master says. Matthew 24:4. He says, and Yeshua answered, saying to them, take heed that no one leads you astray. So the you he's talking about, see, we read this from a dispensational point of view, and we're thinking the you he means is us today. No, he's talking to that generation. When he says you, he means you guys, the guys the people I'm talking to, everybody that's followed me. I'm talking about you guys. Take heed that no one leads you astray, for many shall come in my name. Now, that does not mean that many are going to come in the name of Yahusha or the name of Yeshua. That's not what he's saying. He's saying many will come in my name, the name Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, the name of Elohim, or to put it more in an English perspective, many are going to come in the name of God. That's what he's saying. He's saying, so lots of people are going to come. This will only affect the Jewish people. The rest of the world has their own gods, their own beliefs. This would absolutely affect the Hebrew people, because the one who's coming is going to say, I am the Mashiach. He's going to come in the name of Elohim, but declare himself to be Mashiach. We read this as somebody's going to come at the end and declare themselves Messiah, and the whole world's going to believe him. And whether that's so or not, that's not what he's saying here. He's saying to Israel, to the Jews of this day, there are those who are going to come and saying they're coming in the name of Elohim, the name of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, and they're going to say they're the Mashiach, but it's from a Hebraic perspective of Messiah, because the Hebraic perspective of Messiah is that we got to get rid of Rome. The Messiah is about to come. He's going to establish the kingdom. He's going to make us the #1 nation in the world. He's going to get the boot of Rome off of our neck, and we are going to rule the world with the Messiah here at our side. That's their perspective. So when he says this, he's saying to them, there are people that are going to come. Take heed. Listen, I'm telling you, I don't want anybody to be led astray. Others are going to come in the name of God, in the name of Elohim, and they're going to say they're the Mashiach, and they shall lead many astray. Lots of people are going to follow them. You're going to see they absolutely do. And you shall begin to hear of fightings and reports of fightings. We read this again in a dispensational way, as though he's talking about wars and rumors of wars and stuff going on all over the world. And that absolutely does happen. There's no doubt that happens. There's no doubt that that's happening now everywhere. He's just not talking about us, because we have to read this in the perspective that he's talking to them. He's talking about fightings and wars and rumors of wars in Judea, in Jerusalem, with Rome. This is stuff that's going to be going on right around you that you're going to see. See that you are not troubled. For these things there has to be these false messiahs, these people leading people astray. These things have to take place. But the end, again, he's not talking about the end when the kingdom is established and resurrection occurs. He's talking about the end of the temple system is not yet, because that's what's going to happen. Remember the whole thing of Matthew 23 and 24, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you're going to get surrounded. Your house is going to be left to you desolate. Not one stone upon another will remain. This is the context, is the question they're asking. When's all of this going to happen, and what are the signs? So Luke goes over the same concept, same theme, but he gives us a little bit more information. Here's Luke 21:8, the comparable verse, and it says, and he said, meaning the Messiah, see that you are not led astray. So you can see we're talking about the same thing, because here it is, take heed that no one lead you astray. See that you are not led astray. All right, so they're recording the same information. See that you are not led astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am. Okay, so now we get a lot more clearer picture when he says, when they come in my name, they're not going to come. We're not waiting for somebody to come and say, I'm Yeshua, or I'm Yahushua, or I'm Jesus, or any other, I'm Esu, or I'm Isa, or any other thing like that. That's not what he's saying. He's saying there are going to be people that are going to come in the name of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, in the name of Yahuwah, in the name of Yah. There's going to be people that are going to come in the name of Yah and say, here it is, I am. That's the egoemi in Greek. I am. That's the same thing as we read later on, or prior to this, when Moses is at the burning bush. Who do I tell them sent me? I am. Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh sent you. So that's what he's actually saying here. Many are going to come in the name of Elohim, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, and they're going to say, the time is near. What time is near? The time for the kingdom is near. The time that the Messiah should be showing up is near. And if he's going to establish the kingdom, that means the time of Rome, whose boot is on our neck, is done. The establishment of the kingdom, we being lifted up as the leaders of the world. That's what they're going to be. So this only really has historical or even practical relevance to the people of that day, because that's the people that were looking for this, that this information would have even made sense to, because that's what they were looking for. So they're going to come and they're going to say, the time is near. Then the master again says, do not go after them. But when you hear of fightings and unrest, again, he's talking about in Judea, in Jerusalem. Do not be alarmed, for these have to take first, but the end, meaning again, the end of the temple system, is not immediate. He said to them, nation shall rise against nation, Rome against Judea. And Rome is represented by multiple nations, because it's a conglomerate of nations that make up Rome, that come and attack Jerusalem. But basically, Rome versus Judea, and kingdom against kingdom. So again, we read this as in the future, but if you're reading it from their perspective, this is what's coming. And it did. And it did. So the actual historical background, one of the greatest or most prolific writers on this is Josephus. Josephus writes all about this in the book of the Jewish Wars, the war between Jerusalem, Judea, and Rome. And when you read it, it's horrific to read, and it's very detailed. But it is almost as if you are reading Luke 21 and Matthew 24 in the order. And everything he writes about is in here somewhere. So I'm going to show you. So why does Rome actually come? Because Judea has been rebelling against them. Because people are hearing, wait, Yah is on our side. This person, whoever this leader is saying he comes in the name of Elohim. And he's saying he is the Mashiach. Remember, the Jewish concept of a Mashiach was not the son of Elohim who's going to come and die for our sin. Their concept was a conquering warrior that's going to come. So guys came and they said they were that conquering warrior. Well, you start rebelling against Rome because this person says it's him, and people, start to follow him. This causes a problem. Rome does not like that. Rome's going to put a quash to that. And what we learn is that through Josephus, that the Jews actually, their rebellion, they take down the Antonia Tower. This was the area where the Roman legion, where the military was settled in Jerusalem. Well, they take it over. They destroy the tower. Of course, Rome's going to come. Of course, they're going to come and they're going to try to put down this rebellion. But even before Rome gets there, and this is the part most of us don't know or have never been told before. Way before Rome even gets there, there was a civil war going on in Jerusalem. It was a class warfare that was going on, a warfare of religion that was going on, and a clashing, as I said, of political visions, opinions were going on all at the same time. And this wasn't just a war of words. It wasn't just like people on the internet saying really nasty stuff, but you never get to meet them. No, this was death. This was bad. This was murder. This was horrible, what was going on inside of Judea, inside of Israel in that day. This class warfare was between the rich and the poor. A very Marxist revolution was going on then, just like it's going on now, right in front of us. What's going on right in front of us, what you're seeing in what's going on in Minnesota, what's going on in that area, and not just there, what's been going on for a while, is a Marxist revolution. It's a color revolution. We're not the first ones to get to have this happen to us. It's been happening to us for a while, but many countries have gone through this. And here's Jerusalem going into this middle of this Marxist revolution, this clash of culture in their own nation prior to Rome even coming. So they start tearing themselves apart even before Rome gets there. By the time Titus gets there, by the time the military actually gets there and they surround the city's burning already. In fact, Josephus says that Titus actually decided at first just to sit back and let them destroy each other, because that's what they were doing to each other. The people went nuts. They went bonkers. if you think about Minnesota, if you think about all the um, what are they called? The rioters, Antifa. Think about all the Antifa people. You look at them and you see the orange hair and the nose rings, and they're whacked out. And you look at them and say, "Wait, if you never believed in demons before, that's a demon." Well, it wasn't just that's now. This was going on there then. I'm not saying that they wore purple hair, that they had nose rings, but that same spirit was there, this anarchist spirit, this hatred of one another, this desire to do violence to get your way or no way, to either die for the cause or kill for the cause. This was going on in Jerusalem before Rome got there. This class warfare between the rich and the poor. It's a civil war, and again, this isn't the first time this has happened to Israel. This had been brewing a long, long time, way before even Messiah comes. We went over the history of the Zadok priest. They get kicked out first by the Sadducees, by a group of priests who should not be priests. They take over, they're kicked out, they go to Egypt, eventually they come back, but they don't come back until after a civil war between Sadducees and Pharisees, where lots of people died, where there were assassinations, where things got so bad, the Pharisees had to leave. And Rome eventually comes in, and because Rome comes in, it settles things down that the Pharisees can come back, that the Zadok priests can come back. They go to the Qumran. People are still living there under this tenuous peace, but it's because Rome is there, and Rome will crush it if they start doing this again. So the underpinnings of this civil war had been going on a long time. We see it in the gospel accounts. Some of the disciples are zealots. They are the people that want to start the battles. Many zealots had died. Rebellion was going on in the first century as well. Rome was crushing it in the first century. This is not new. This had been going on, but it reached a boiling point in over those 40 years leading up to 70 AD after the resurrection. So it was the rich versus the poor. It was the elite, like the priests, the Sanhedrin, the wealthy families. We would say the globalist and the WEF, and the party leaders. And from the other people's view, these elite were collaborators with Rome. Then there were the rebels. The rebels were the poor people, the gangs. It was the French Revolution, the bourgeoisie, and the I forget what the other name of it was. I can't think of it. Whatever the other name was, the haves and the have-nots. These gangs they were gangs of displaced peasants, people from the not from inside of Jerusalem, outside of Jerusalem, who had been taxed to death. But we see this in the Gospels: the tax collectors that take too much, not just for Rome, but then for themselves as well. Um, they taxed them so much that these people lost their farms, they lost their homes, they lost their way of living. They were taxed to death. And as they enter into Jerusalem, and the fighting begins between them, between the poor, the rebels, the zealots, and those who were the elite. One of the first things in historically, what Josephus tells us, is they burnt the public archives. One of the reasons they burnt the public archives is because that's where all the tax information was. They burnt it to the ground, so you can't tell who paid tax and who didn't pay tax. Um, so this is the volatile system that's going on in Jerusalem. But that's just the class warfare part of it. Here is the proletariat. It just hit me: the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, the haves and the have-nots, those who owned and those who worked. All right, so we said this class warfare. There's also, let me just go back here real quick so you can see it again one more time. Class warfare, religious extremism, and then clashing political views. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is all coming out of Josephus. This all comes out of the book that he writes. So the religious extremism that was across all of them was how to achieve the kingdom of Elohim. Now, we just did a message on this just a couple of weeks ago. If Abraham could not make the son happen on his own terms, this is why Saul says that they are Ishmael, that Jerusalem in the Middle East, there is Ishmael. They're trying to make it happen on their own. We serve the Jerusalem that is above. We are free. They're still slaves, like Hagar. They are trying to make it on their own. So part of this was, how do we make the kingdom appear? How do we achieve the kingdom? Because there's people that are coming up and saying, we achieve the kingdom through conquest. He's a Messiah, or he's a Messiah, or he's a Messiah, and they're going to lead us to battle. And according to the prophecies, we're going to get rid of Rome. Where the others saying, no, no, we need to compromise with them. We can achieve the kingdom through peace. We can become this through peace. This is the conflict that's going on. So the moderates are up here on your notes. The moderates, the priests, the rich, they wanted to negotiate with Rome. They wanted to save the city and the temple through negotiation. Where you had the zealots, they didn't want negotiation. They would accept no master above them except Elohim, but it's their concept of Elohim. Their concept. It's not the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's their concept of him. So I get it, and we see this even in the Gospels. So who's is it wrong to give a tithe? Is it wrong to give money to Rome? They're asking that. The zealots are asking this question, because if you do, then you're part of the problem. Right. So we see even the seeds of this in the gospel. They wanted no master over them except Elohim. They thought it would be sin. And the moderates, who did want to compromise, who did want to negotiate, they looked at the moderates as heretics, and this religious hatred in between them on how to establish the kingdom of heaven. Again, we can establish the kingdom, uh, but that's what they were trying to do. And they considered the moderates traitors to the covenant. Now, there were also regional rivalries that were going on. It wasn't just, it was going on in Jerusalem, but it was the region of Jerusalem versus the region of Galilee, from which false messiahs came from each of the regions, all in Elohim's name, all in the name of Yod He Wav He. So these are the things Messiah is referring to. Here's just two of them. This is John. This is right out of Josephus' book. One of the messiahs was John Gershala. He led a hardened group of refugees from Galilee who had already seen their homes destroyed by the Romans. They were the total war advocates, the zealots, just total war. We can have no peace with them. It's kill or be killed to establish the kingdom. And then there was Simon Bar Giora, who led a populist movement of free men and former slaves. Now, these groups did not trust each other's leaders. Each leader viewed himself in a messianic figure. They referred to themselves. People lauded them as the Mashiach, the Messiah, the figure who would be the one to eventually defeat Rome. And they weren't willing to share that glory. So exactly what Messiah said was going to happen is happening. Many false messiahs are coming. They're coming in the name of Elohim, and they're saying that they are Mashiach. They're coming in the name of I am, but they are saying that they are Mashiach. All right, so Jerusalem has these groups in it. Jerusalem, over this time, has become. I know it's gonna mess people up, but listen to what I'm saying. Over this time, has become a city full of demons, full of foul spirits, and full of every unclean bird that caused civil war, Marxist revolution, color revolution, the hating, the murders, the assassinations, until it became an outright war between the factions. And there wind up becoming three different factions. Jerusalem was, according to Josephus, book 5, um, uh, uh, first chapter, verse 3, it says, the battle for the Temple Mount, uh, the city was divided into three different sections. It had three different walls around it. And each one of these factions or groups took over a different part of the temple, or took over a different part of the city of Jerusalem with their armies or their supporters, and they fought each other before the Romans ever got there. The rebellion had started a while ago. It started in 66, but by this time they're fighting each other. So according to Josephus in book 5, the three leaders of the three groups in the three areas of Jerusalem was Eleazar. I'm right here, guys, if you're following along on the notes. Eleazar owned the top, the Temple Mount. He held the inner core of the temple. So him and his group, his band, they held the high ground. He was above the others, but he had fewer men. But holding the high ground in any military battle is where you want to be. You want other people coming at you from down below, and you would shoot down. It's just a military advantage. So this is how this thing devolved into they're fighting each other, Jew killing Jew. The next group was, as we said, John of Gershala. He held the middle ground. He held the outer courts. And he had to fight upward against Eleazar, who held the temple proper, but he also had to fight downward against Simon Bar Giora. So they're fighting each other. If you can picture in your mind, Jerusalem is just going nuts, killing each other. Um, and below them was Simon Bar Giora, who held the bottom. He held the entire upper and lower city, and he attacked John from the streets below. So this is just imagine the chaos that's going on, because now we're talking about this is, yes, assassinations went on for a while, killings and murderings and all the rest of that, but again, this eventually just became a kinetic war against one another. This begins the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation really encompasses a lot. The ultimate end of the abomination of desolation is the shutting down of the altar. All right, we got that. But it's also the desecration of the altar. And here's where it begins, because these three groups that are fighting each other months and months, and even as Rome is marching towards them, they don't even realize it because these battles are going on. Here is what Josephus says. Here's what Messiah says: when you see this, not Rome come in, and because Rome's going to come in, they're going to do something abominable too. But if you see that, you're dead already. But this you might have seen before all of this happened. And Messiah says, when you see it, run. Here's Josephus. Listen to what he says about what went on with these three factions. It says, the darts that were thrown by the engines. He means trebuchets, the military engines, the big, huge wooden slingshots that threw, a 1,000-pound stone, or they lit something on fire and threw it over. They were shooting these things at each other from inside of Jerusalem at the different parts of the city that the people were in. The darts that were thrown by the engines came. This isn't what Rome did. This is what they did to themselves. Came with that force, and here it is, the stones that they're throwing reached as far as the altar and the temple itself. The people below were shooting at the people at the temple, at the altar, at the temple, from both of them, and shooting down and shooting up. And you might see this is crazy, and you might see the dead bodies of strangers and natives together. And the blood of all sorts of dead carcasses stood in lakes in the holy courts themselves. This is how bad the fighting got. Now, I think he's probably being a little poetic, a little bombastic. I don't think it was a lake. We're not thinking about, a 7-foot, 10-foot lake. But he's talking about the entire ground was soaked with blood. So many people died. There's about a million and a half, close to 1.5 million people. So, well, according to Josephus, probably like 1.2 million, 1.3 million people in Jerusalem at the time. So imagine how much blood there has to be for there to be pools, but not just pools of blood in the temple courts, at the altar. The altar was being struck. The temple was being struck. They were doing this to each other before Rome even got there. So all of a sudden you get this becomes the beginning of this is a desecration of that holy area. This is a desecration of the altar and the temple. You're murdering people. Remember, just stones crushing them, people dying all over the place. So this is Josephus, same book. Verse 4 says, John, meaning a John of Gershala, and this he did always, because this wasn't the only thing they did. And this he did always in such parts of the city as he could come at, till he set on fire those houses that were full of corn. So you had John of Gershala setting on fire all the food houses that up at the Temple Mount they had, and Simon Bar Giora setting all the food houses that John of Gischala had stored for the people. And John of Gischala doing the same thing, setting all the food stores of Simon Bar Giora in the upper and lower parts of the city, setting their storehouses of food and grain and everything else that were stored up there that could have allowed the people of Jerusalem to survive a siege for years and years and years. But before Rome even gets there, they burn it up themselves. Listen to this. As he did always in such parts of the city as he could come at, till he set on fire houses that were full of corn, meaning grain, and of all other provisions, everything else that you would eat. The same thing was done by Simon. When upon the others retreated, he attacked the city also. And if they had on purpose done it to serve as if they had done this to serve the Romans, by destroying what the city had laid up against the siege, and by thus cutting off the nerves of their own power. Accordingly, it so came to pass that all the places that were about the temple were burnt down. All the buildings around the temple were burnt down, and there would become an immediate desert space, ready for fighting on both sides of it, and that almost all that corn was burnt, which would have been sufficient for a siege for many years. So they were taken by the means of famine. They caused the famine that came into Jerusalem and killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, as well as all the fighting and everything else that's going on. Beloved, they did it to themselves. This is how evil they were. This is the demons, the foul spirits, the unclean birds that are tearing each other apart, and all the people of Jerusalem over these different class warfare, religious warfare, political warfare. Who's the Messiah? Who's not the Messiah? Rome's out, Rome's in. This was going on before Rome even got there. So it's a bad, bad situation in Jerusalem way before Titus shows up. Messiah warned. Again, we've said this before, but say it again. Messiah warned us when he warned the disciples that this is going to happen to this generation, the people he's speaking to. So here's Matthew chapter 24. He says, "For then," we've already seen when you see the abomination of desolation, which we just finished describing the beginnings of it, that you've got dead bodies and destruction and all the things around the temple burnt down. When you begin to see that, leave. And here's what he says, for there shall be great distress. Well, yeah, if all the buildings are burnt down, if the whole Jerusalem's fighting each other, if there's a Marxist revolution going on, if they're wiping each other out, if now there's no food, well, what's coming? Disease and pestilence and starvation, all those things are coming to the city. For then there shall be great distress, all of the things I just mentioned, such has not been since the beginning of the world until this time. He's talking about with regard to Jerusalem. This language here is Daniel language. This is how the first siege of Jerusalem was described, as something that has not happened until this time. So he's actually in a way quoting Daniel to attach the two concepts. He says, no, nor ever shall be in Jerusalem. And if those days were not shortened. So we read that in a dispensational way, thinking, oh, he's talking about some time in the future that he's going to shorten the time of the great tribulation to come. When in actuality, from a historical perspective, what he's saying is, no, if this time, if what they were doing to each other is not shortened, if what happens when Rome comes is not shortened, no flesh would survive. Nobody would survive this. And if these days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. Because this is what he's talking about. He's talking about the destruction of the temple. That's the question. But for the sake of the chosen ones, those days shall be shortened. If anyone that says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe it. Well, we just finished reading, the whole three factions of groups that said, there is Messiah, and people believed it. He says, for false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. We read that today that a guy's going to come up and he's going to make a covenant, or somebody's going to make a covenant with Israel for 7 years. He's going to call himself Messiah, and the whole world's going to believe him. Even the chosen ones might believe him. That's whether that's true or not. That's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about what we just read about, that people began following these other people because their concept of Messiah was to establish the kingdom now, get rid of Rome now. That's what was in their minds, and people would follow them. And it's possible even the chosen ones who believed in the Mashiach and the death and resurrection, if they don't take heed and they don't get out of Jerusalem when they see these things start to happen, when they realize, remember what see means, when they begin to realize these things are coming, that Messiah told us these things were coming, that the disciples preached for 40 years, these things are coming, that Stephen died for in saying this is coming, Messiah is coming back to destroy the temple. You see that and you stay there and you're a chosen one, you're in trouble. And he says, see, I have forewarned you. Well, let's go to Josephus. Here's Josephus, book 5, chapter 1. It says, it's book 5, chapter 1. It says, while the holy house was on fire, everything was plundered that came to hand, and 10,000s of those were caught were slain. Nor was there commiseration of any age or any reverence of gravity, but children and old men and profane persons and priests were all slain in the same manner, so that this war went round all sorts of men and brought them to destruction, and as well those that made supplication for their lives and those that defended themselves by fighting. The flame was also carried along the way and made an echo together with the groans of those who were slain. He was saying there was so much screaming, so much crying, so much pleading. It was so loud. I left out the verses. He said it would echo off the mountains. The groaning, the moaning that was going on in Jerusalem could be heard in Perea, another land. There's Perea, there's Samaria, there's Galilee. You could hear it all the way in the mountains as an echo. That's just horrifying to even think of the agony that these people were in, moaning like this. Now he goes on. This also was going on. Now there was then, here it is, there was then, this is Josephus, this is not Messiah, it's not the Messiah. Here's Josephus, the historian. Now there was then in Jerusalem, that got them to this point, there was then a great number of false prophets, suborned by the tyrants to impose on the people who denounced this to them. So you got your false messiahs, now you got your false prophets. And what were they telling them? Peace, peace. He's the Messiah. Kingdom's going to come. Everything's going to be good. Elohim's going to deliver us. That they should wait for the deliverance from God. And this was in order to keep them from deserting. It's because, people are going to want to flee, get out. But if they fled, Rome was going to kill them once you tried to get out anyway. So these false prophets used these promises to keep them in. And that they might be buoyed up above fear and care by such hopes. Now a man that is in adversity does easily comply with such promises. They wanted this hope. They wanted to believe this guy's the Messiah, that everything the priest told me, everything the rabbis told me, everything these false messiahs said is actually going to, you would want that, especially if you see Rome outside, plus all the horror you've seen, everybody killing everybody else. For when such a seducer makes him believe that he shall be delivered from those miseries which oppress him, then it is that the patient is full of hopes of such his deliverance. Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers, and such as believed God himself, even people who were the elect, that stayed. Started to try to have hope in what these false messiahs were saying. That's exactly what Messiah told us was coming. For false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they're going to show great signs and wonders to lead astray everyone, if possible, even the chosen ones. Now, Josephus is not a believer in the death and resurrection of the Mashiach, of Yahusha or Yeshua. He's not, but he's just telling us historically what happened. And yet historically what happened is exactly what Messiah said was going to happen. That's amazing. That's amazing. Scary, but so there's these false prophets that are being used by these messiahs to keep people in line. Tell them God's going to come. Tell them all the stories you read about in the Torah. He's just going to come in the nick of time, and a miracle's going to happen. We'll talk about signs and wonders in a second. Hopefully, we'll have enough time. All right. So Luke chapter 23. So these same warnings come from the Messiah, not just there in Luke 21, not just there in Matthew 24. Here's Luke 23. This is at the cross, right? This is Messiah carrying the cross to the hill, to outside of Jerusalem. And it says in Luke chapter 23, I don't know what verse that is. I think it's like verse 20, 30, maybe I don't know if it's 29 or 30. It's too small for me to read. It says, and a great number of the people were following him, and women who also were mourning and lamenting the Messiah. But Yahushua, turning to them, said, listen to what he says, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. Because he knows what's coming. He already told them that was coming. For look, days are coming in which they shall say, blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts which never nursed. Then they shall begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. Because if they do this to the green tree, Messiah is the green tree. If the elders of Jerusalem, if the leadership of Jerusalem is willing to do this to the green tree, to kill him, what is going to be done by the dry tree? These factions killing each other, even before Rome gets there. All of this going on. All of this going on. Here's Matthew chapter 24, verse 26. It says, so if they say to you, we read this already, but listen to it again. So if they say to you, look, here he's in the desert, do not go and look. Or he's in the inner rooms. Don't go out there. He's on that. He's in the place of the temple with that faction there. No, don't go there. Don't believe it. For as lightning comes out from the east and shines from the west, so also the coming of the Son of Adam will be. Now we read that and we think we're reading coming to establish the kingdom, resurrection. That's not what the topic is here. The topic is the destruction of Jerusalem. I'm not saying the Messiah is not coming. I'm not saying there isn't a resurrection. I'm not saying that there isn't that coming. Yeah, there is. What I'm saying is it doesn't sound like this is about that, even though dispensationalism has taught us that this is about that. You start to separate and you realize, wait a minute, this already happened historically. Again, I'm not telling you Messiah is not coming. He is. Absolutely believe it, resurrection, all the rest of that. But we got to find the verses and what it actually speaks about that to truly understand what that is about. Whole other study for a whole other time. We're just talking about Jerusalem and the Great Tribulation. So, one more time, if they say to you, look, he's in a desert, do not go out, or look, he's in inner rooms, don't believe it. For as lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also the coming of the Son of Adam will be. For wherever the dead body is, there the vultures. Now, it says vultures here in the scriptures version. Look at almost every other version out there, and it says eagles shall be gathered. I remember somebody asking me this question a long, long time ago, what that means. I really didn't have any idea in my early years of ministry. I'm just the initial idea is that, there's so many dead carcasses everywhere when Messiah comes that, the birds, the eagles are going to come and they're just going to eat up everything. I don't think that's what he's referring to here, because this is a fulfillment, a confirmation of the Mosaic covenant. Just like the first destruction of Jerusalem, Daniel told us was a confirmation of the covenant. And there's another confirmation of the covenant because Moses said, if you don't learn this time, this is what's going to happen to you. Everything Messiah is saying here. So the word translated vultures or eagles is in the Greek. You can look this up yourselves. It's 105. It's aetos. It's from the root word aer from 109, and it means an eagle, not a vulture, an eagle. I think they translated vulture because it just makes more sense that vultures would come and pick apart all the dead flesh, but it says eagles. An eagle from its wind-like flight / eagle. This is a confirmation of the covenant that Moses said, because Moses said, the first time you guys do this, your king and all your people are going to be taken and you're going to be brought to another nation where you're going to serve. Then if you do it again, this is going to be a sign to you. Your city's going to be burnt. And this is what he says in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 49. Yahweh shall bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. a nation whose language you shall not understand, a fierce looking nation which shall show no regard for the elderly nor show favor to the young. Now we just finished reading in the writings of Josephus that when they came in, oh, I'm sorry, let me make this a little bit bigger. That when they came in, there was no commiseration of any age or reverence or gravity, but the children, old men, profane persons, and priests were all slain in the same manner. That is exactly what Moses said was going to be happening when the city was destroyed. If you continue to do this and eventually be scattered all over the world, the eagles. Now he just names it here as swift as an eagle, but I think it's a prophetic utterance to let us know. But who historically came in and destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed the temple? The eagle did. The Imperium Romanum, Imperial Rome. They came in and eventually are the ones that wind up burning the temple to the ground. Rome, the eagle. Here is Josephus in the book of the Jewish War, book 6, chapter 8, section 5. It says they, not this isn't PDP, this is what Josephus writes. They, the Romans, went into the lanes of the city with their swords drawn. They slew those whom they overtook without mercy and set fire to the houses. And when they were come to the house to plunder them, they found in them entire families of dead men. The whole city ran with blood to such a degree that the fire of many of the houses was quenched with these men's blood. That's disgusting. But you need to understand what's being said here. So many people died. Could you imagine how much blood, how much bodily fluids of 1,000 people baking in the sun from springtime to fall time? Well, maybe the first 100 you clean up. The first 1,000, that'd be hard to. 10,000, almost impossible. 50,000, no way. 100,000, no way. Every body that dies begins to decay. There's no burial there. They begin to decay. They begin to blow up. Bodily fluids pour out. The wounds and the cuts pour out. Josephus is telling us even when Rome got there, there was so much blood that they set houses on fire, but the bodily fluids that were flowing down the hills in Jerusalem would put the fires out. That's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. And yet here is the account of it, of Rome, the eagle coming in. Here's the book of the Jewish Wars, book 5, chapter 1, section 3. It says, and the blood of all sorts of dead carcasses stood in lakes in the holy courts themselves. We read that already. This is what they did to each other. So we already see a picture of this even before the Romans come. Book 5, chapter 12, section 3. Dead bodies were eventually thrown over the city walls into the valleys below because the stench in the city became unbearable. Josephus claims that when the Roman general Titus rode around the valleys and saw the thick putrefaction and the distilling fluids from the thousands of rotting corpses, he groaned and spread his hands out to heaven, calling God to witness that this was not his doing. This is what they did to themselves. Before we got here, of course, obviously Rome killed a lot going in as well. As a matter of fact, according to Josephus, book 6, he says 1.1 million people perished during the siege. Imagine the blood and the stench and the putrefaction and the disease and the famine and the disgust and the smell of 1.1 million people dying in some 4-month period in the little city of Jerusalem. Mostly from famine and pestilence, though many were killed by the sword. 97,000 people were taken captive by the Romans to be sold into slavery and thrown into the wild beast in the arena. So even if you survived this, you didn't survive this. You were gone either way. But just so we get a picture, a window, this is great tribulation in the way Daniel refers to it, a time as there has never been to Jerusalem before. Messiah calls it the same thing, and speaking specifically about not one stone will be left upon another of that city, because of their abominations, that their house would be left to them desolate. We got to keep in mind the topic here. The topic is not coming back to establish the kingdom. That's not the topic here. The topic here is the destruction of Jerusalem. Here's Matthew 24 again, verse 24. For false prophets and false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. We saw that. See, I have forewarned you. Um, Next verse, for wherever the dead body is, there the vultures, the eagles shall be gathered. We just read that. And immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Now we read that as saying, when this is all over, then these things are going to happen. It's in the pressure of those days, the following the fighting of each one of the groups with each other, the civil war that's going on. Because this is everything he's described. This is what's happening. Then Rome comes in. All of this, there are signs and wonders that occur that these prophets used to their benefit, though they weren't really to their benefit. Luke 21 gives us a little bit more clear understanding of this. Luke 21 says, and there shall be great earthquakes in various places, and scarcities of food, and deadly disease, and there shall be horrors, and great signs from heaven. And when you see Jerusalem surrounded by Roman armies, then know that its laying waste is near, which is exactly what we read in Matthew 24. Then let those in Judea flee to the mountains, and let those who are in the midst of her go out, and let those who are in the fields not enter her. Because these are the days of vengeance to fulfill all that has been written, to confirm the covenant of Moses, just like Daniel said. And woe to those who are pregnant, exactly what Messiah said to the women who were weeping for him. And woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing children in those days, because you'll go through all of the stuff that Josephus just described. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations, for the arena, for slavery, for all the rest, anybody who survives, and then scattered all over the world. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are filled. The times of the nations aren't filled yet. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on earth anxiety of nations and bewilderment at the roaring of the sea, and agitation of men fainting from fear at the expectation of what is coming upon the earth. Now, the word earth is eretz. It means the land. Doesn't mean the entire planet. It means the land. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And when they shall see the Son of Adam coming in a cloud with power and much glory, and when these matters begin to take place, that is the destruction of Jerusalem, being surrounded. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded, where is it? When you see Jerusalem being surrounded, and when these matters begin to take place, all the signs he said that were going to happen, all the false prophets, all the factions, all the killing of one another, when you begin to see all that, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. He's talking about Jerusalem. Now, we read this because of our dispensational sort of bias. We read this as this is the end when Messiah comes, because you're going to see him in his glory. When we talked about what seeing actually means, you're going to understand this is a term of judgment. Judgment has come upon Jerusalem. That's Messiah coming in his glory. I know this sounds crazy. But in essence, Mashiach came the second time, not to start the kingdom, not to have resurrection, but to destroy Jerusalem, because that's what they were preaching. Again, go back to Acts chapter 6 and listen to the accusation made against Stephen. He was preaching and telling them Mashiach is coming back. The Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua of Nazareth, Yahusha of Nazareth is coming back to destroy both the temple, the city, and all of the traditions, the temple traditions of Moses. That was the accusation that got him killed, because that's what they were preaching. Bang, here is when it happens. And Messiah is telling us the same things. But he says these great signs. So what great signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars is he talking about? Because we're looking for signs in the suns and the moon and stars. I'm not telling you there can't be signs of the sun, the moon, and stars in our day too, but that's not what he's talking about here. So what signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars is he talking about? Well, one more time, let's go back to Josephus. This is Josephus, book 6, chapter 5, 3. It says, I'm going to read the whole thing because it's really amazing. These are just some of this. This isn't even all of it, but here's a good portion of it. It says, thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers, meaning the false prophets, and such as believed God himself, even the elect, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident, and did not plainly foretell their future desolation, but like men infatuated with either eye without either eyes to see or minds to consider. This is what seeing means: to realize, not to actually see, to realize. And did so plainly with eyes to see nor minds to consider, did not regard the denunciations that Elohim, that God made to them. Thus, here's some of the signs that he says happen prior to the destruction of Jerusalem, even a couple years before the destruction of Jerusalem, leading all the way up to Jerusalem, and even after. Listen to these signs. Thus there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city. And there was a comet that continued to pass through the sky for a whole year. Thus also before the Jews' rebellion, and before those commotions which preceded the war, when the people were to come in great crowds to the feast of unleavened bread on the 8th day of the month, Xanthicus, the month of Nisan, and the 9th hour of the night, so great a light shone around the altar, as if a star fell to the ground around the altar and the holy place, that it appeared to be bright daytime. In the middle of the night, the entire temple complex is lit up bright as day, which light lasted for a half an hour. This light seemed to be a good sign to the unskillful, but was so interpreted by the sacred scribe as to portend to those events that followed immediately upon it. At the same festival, also a heifer, as she was led by the high priest to be sacrificed, brought forth a lamb in the midst of the temple. A calf. Now, when he says a heifer, I'm assuming he means a cow. It could mean, I don't, there's no way to look up the words here. It could mean a female goat, but if we're talking about a heifer, a cow gave birth, it says, to a lamb. Now, I'm thinking, you listen and say, well, that sounds kind of crazy. Or was it a deformed miscarriage that the thing looked like a lamb when it was birth? Either way, this thing popped out a baby that was still right there on the altar before becoming which obviously it cannot be the sacrificial animal anymore. This happened. That's a bad sign, no matter which way it is, heifer being cow or heifer being a female goat. Sometimes the goats, they also refer to as cattle. Moreover, the eastern gate of the inner court of the temple, which was of brass, big doors, and vastly heavy, and had been with difficulty shut by, it took 20 men to shut one of those doors. That's how heavy these things were, and rested upon a basis armed with iron, and had bolts fastened very deep into the firm floor, which there was made of one entire stone. It was seen to be opened of its own accord about the 6th hour of the night. This door that takes 20 people to close opened up by itself. Now those that kept watch in the temple came hereupon running to the captain of the temple and told him of it, who then came up thither, and not with great difficulty was able to shut the gate again. This happened multiple times. This also appeared to be this also appeared to the vulgar to be a very happy prodigy, as if God did thereby open the gate of happiness. But the men of learning understood it, that the security of their holy house was dissolved of its own accord. Abba was leaving the house. The Spirit was leaving the house. Bad things were coming. And that the gate was open for the advantage of their enemies. So these publicly declared that the signal foreshadowed the desolation that was coming upon them. Besides these, a few days after that feast, on the 21st day of the month of Iyar, a certain prodigious and incredible phenomenon appeared. I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable were it not related by those who saw it, and were not the events that followed of it so considerable a nature as to deserve such signals. For before the setting sun, as the sun is setting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about the clouds and surrounding the cities. Moreover, at the feast which we call Pentecost, Shavuot, as the priests were going by night into the inner court, the court of the temple, as their custom was to perform their sacred ministrations, they said that in the first place they felt a quaking, an earthquake, a shaking in the temple, and heard a great noise, the earth bellowing. And after that, they heard a sound, listen to this, as of a multitude saying, let us remove hence. Let us leave this place. It was interpreted, and if you read on, this is the Shekinah they're saying that was being removed. The presence was gone. And again, there's more that goes on. He describes someone called Yeshua. This is crazy. Someone called Yeshua, the son of Annas. This is a different Ananias. This was a different Yeshua. This guy was a, a farmer, a husbandman, just a nobody. But for 4 years prior to the destruction of Jerusalem, he would walk around Jerusalem and say, a voice from the east, a voice from the west, a voice from the four winds, a voice against Jerusalem and the holy house, a voice against the bridegrooms and the brides, a voice against this whole people. Just would say it over and over. They thought the guy was nuts. They took him and they whipped him to try to get it out of him. Why are you doing this? And every time they whipped him, he would say, woe to Jerusalem, woe to Jerusalem. Josephus goes on to say that he would say this up until the day he died, when one of the stones from the trebuchets actually hit him. And as it was coming, they say he cried out, woe to Jerusalem and woe to me. These are things that went on before, in the middle of, and during the whole Jerusalem experience of 70 AD. These are some of the signs and wonders that these false prophets would use to deceive the people. And so think about this. This is crazy. I know I'm just a minute or so, a couple of minutes over, but think about this. They saw in the sun, moon, and stars, in the nighttime, in the daytime, they saw a comet. Here's just an artist rendering or picture of a comet that appeared over Jerusalem for a year. What comet it was, we don't know. Obviously, I guess we can go back historically and find out, maybe Halley's Comet. But they also saw a bright star in the sky that looked like a sword, and it appeared there and stayed there. And they also saw in the middle of the night the entire temple complex light up with light, and a great sound come out. Let us leave hence to go. And they declare that they also saw, as the sun was setting, the sun is setting here in the clouds. Now, is it a cloud formation that they saw that looked like this, or did they see something beyond that? I don't know. It's conjecture on our part. We can only read what Josephus writes, what they said they saw. In fact, he says it sounds like a fable, but people actually saw this. They saw armies of soldiers arrayed in armor in the clouds. This is what they saw, or this is what is reported by Josephus at the destruction prior to, during, right up to the destruction of Jerusalem. No, I know. You get into the next verses. We're going to talk about the next verses. Me and everybody wants to get into the next verses. We just don't have time to get into them today. We will, not next week because we got a prayer service, but the week after, we'll come back. We'll pick this up. Gives you a little time to chew over all of this, go back into it, do your own research. Make up your own mind. I'm not trying to prove right. I'm not trying to prove you right. Not trying to prove you wrong. I'm just trying to get this as honestly correct as we can. We need to understand this stuff correctly, I think, if we're going to understand where we are today and what verses do actually speak about the second coming, the time when Mashiach will physically come and establish a kingdom, and resurrection will occur, and all the stuff that goes on with that. We'll look at that at another time. Really, it's going to take a long time to go through. It's going to take a long time just going through this. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this and appreciate the historical end of this and all the things that other pieces of information that are really, really important. It happened to, according to the master's words, to this generation. And he's going to repeat that again. He's going to repeat that again, but we'll get into that next time. Guys, don't forget to join us on Friday night for our Zoom call. We're looking forward to it. Keep your notifications on, so when we send out the info, you get it. It's 7:30. I think, yeah, 7:30. So check it out with us. We look forward to seeing you guys. And everybody that's a member here at LMC, don't forget this weekend to show up. We have our membership class. It's going to be a special weekend. Looking forward to it, guys. I think snow is coming again this weekend, Saturday to Sunday, from what I hear. I hope not. I'm so tired of shoveling, but you got to do what you got to do. In the meantime, guys, stay safe, stay warm out there. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Yah bless everybody. Peace.